Well, I am very excited today because I have my good friend Bobby Jo Valentine here to have an incredible conversation. I know that that's my affirmation. Bobby is a singer, songwriter, poet, and so much more. Welcome to the Element Q podcast. I'm your host, TJ Woodward, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for this empowering journey. Each week, we shine a light on the authors, thought leaders, therapists, coaches, and healers of all types who are making a difference in the LGBTQ plus community. Together, we honor those who came before us, the courageous and resilient trailblazers who stood for our rights and recognition. Their strength laid the foundation we stand on today. Here, we celebrate their legacy by diving into the stories, insights, and tools that inspire gentleness, healing, and transformation. So get ready to be uplifted and empowered. This is the Element Q podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, TJ. Yeah, it's we've known each other for a little while, haven't we?
We've known each other for a while, but it's been a minute since we've seen one another. So I'm happy that we have this opportunity to dive into a conversation. We'll just catch up and let people be in the conversation with us, which I think is the best.
Perfect. Yes, that sounds good.
So when we think about or when we sit with the topic of a deeper healing within the LGBTQ community, I asked you about that and you came up with something that I thought was a really great place to start. And that is we're in a time of reconstruction within this community rather than destruction. Can you tell us what that means to you?
Yeah, I feel like we're in this really deep, wonderful opportunity right now to build a better world. And we're in a place right now where, in some areas, queer voices are being uplifted. And we have an opportunity to do not only some prophecy, but some maybe you could say like priestly work of building up something good and building up something beautiful. When you asked me that, I thought of this Jewish proverb I recently read, which is that any old donkey can, destroy a barn, but it takes a special kind of donkey to build one. And of course, we're not donkeys, but I love the illustration of that, of the real opportunity and work in the world, like the real calling and vocation in the world, is of course to grow a beautiful garden, to build something beautiful. And it's totally necessary to dismantle systems that have not served everybody. But at the same time, we need to be building something good. And we have a great opportunity to do that right now in the
Yeah.
world.
I think about that in the collective like it is in the individual work. And I know in my own individual journey of healing, there have been times where it was important for me to look at what's in the shadow, bring it up, take a look. Sometimes it does feel like things are falling apart and that there's deconstruction. And then there's always in the midst of that an opportunity to recreate. And I've had a couple of moments in my life when things felt somewhat dark. And I realized at that point that I'm either going to unconsciously create my life, in other words, do it the same way I've always done it, or move into a more conscious awareness of what do I really want to create now that I have this opportunity. And I see that as what I'm hearing you say is that's the opportunity that we have right now with our community.
Yes, yeah. I feel like the all of my I love philosophical work and spiritual work, and I just read and read and read. I don't ever stop. I feel like I'm always learning. And the more that I learn, the more simply I hold my spiritual and life philosophy. And what I mean by that is I feel like all of the best spiritual teaching is simply about living everyday life awake.
Mm,
And what you said, living everyday life consciously and really understanding that it's not a matter of control as it is a matter of co-creation and understanding that we are authors with life and in the world that we're building together. For me, anyway, that's kind of as I've discovered the things in my life. I used to think, so I grew up in an independent fundamental Baptist world, which was very strict, very rule based. This is the way it goes. And it was very control based, give your life over to the control of this system and these rules. And if you follow this system and these rules, it'll equal a happy life. And of course, everyone in that system was very unhappy, profoundly unhappy, and trying to make up for it. And they weren't unhappy because it wasn't working. Simply handing over your control wasn't working. And when I left that world, I then put the full weight and responsibility of control for a season on me. And that was way too heavy a burden to bear. And it wasn't sustainable. And now in my life, I'm really trying to lean into the idea that I'm co-creating life. Like I'm alongside of this life that's being lived through me and all these relationships and wonderful presences like you, TJ, in my life. And together we're making something beautiful. It doesn't have to be all up to me, but I do have to be a conscious part of it. And that is my invitation in life.
Oh, I love that. And for me, I have always an opportunity to be more awake. And I love, a term that I use is awake within the dream rather than awake from the dream. And the reason
Oh,
I
that's
say that is
beautiful.
like there's this collective dream that's happening. It might feel like a nightmare sometimes, it might feel like a dream sometimes, but there's things happening in the world and in my life and in my relationships. And I have an opportunity to be awake within that. Now, so what does awake mean, right? We use the term woke, we use the term awake. For me, awake simply means that I'm aware that I'm either creating from my unconscious beliefs and ideas, and that can happen individually or collectively. And I think about LGBTQ plus, the queer community, and where we've been. And there is a narrative that has been created right within the community, from outside the community. And it's easy to default into just being in that sort of dream, if you will, of like, oh, this is just the way it is. This is what's happened. We've been this marginalized community. There's a lot of wounding, right? Which I get. I had had to do a lot of my own healing and my wounding. So I wasn't living from that. And so when you say awaken or wake up within this, or what does that mean and how do we do it? I know that's a big question, but I'd love to dive into that conversation.
Yeah, I'm so curious as to your thoughts on that. As someone that lives their life teaching people how to live consciously, how do I live more awake? Well, I have a couple of months ago, actually now it's like 6 to 8 months ago, I got my first tattoo, and my tattoo has one of the lyrics of my songs on it. It just says "Slow down, feel it." I know it's reversed in the video, but it says slow down and feel it. And so when I think about being awake and alive, I think of this motto, slow down, feel it, feel what's happening in your life. Don't let it rush by you like a river, like an uncontrollable river. But if we slow down, we have a much better chance of being awake to moment life. So when I think of being alive and conscious, I try to remind myself to slow down and feel what's going on.
I love that. And I don't know where you went in the song with it. I'm sure when I hear the song, because maybe you'll even play it for us. I don't know. I see a guitar right there next to you, but I
Yeah, we
don't
got a
know.
guitar.
Maybe we'll do that. But when I think about you might mean there's so much you could mean by that. But when I think about slow down and feel it, one of the things that comes to mind is that so often I'll put it in the eye. I've been in reaction mode. Like something happens and I'm in reactivity rather than to pause to actually feel what I'm experiencing before I react. And then, the intention is to be responsive to the world, not reactive to the world. And that only took me about 20 years to get there, right? Because, from 20 to 40, I was like, the world is broken. I need to change it. And then as I did some of my own deeper transformation, I guess, and so much of it is allowing myself to feel. And, to go a little deeper into it, when I was a kid, there were things that were too scary to feel. And part of it was being a little gay boy in the Midwest in the 1970s and living basically a life where I started to believe I was broken or damaged. And so
Mm.
that was sort of my operating system. And then I was projecting that outward. And there was so much that was unfelt from my earlier years that I had to go back and do for myself and let my kind of my inner child and then recognize the inner rebellious teen that had been running the show too and kind of start to integrate and acknowledge the roles that all of that had played. But I'm not sure if that's what you mean by slow down and feel it, but that's what comes up for me.
Yeah, no, I love that. I do feel like we have to, one of the aspects of slowing down is letting our past catch up with our present so we can heal it. Understanding that we are actually linked to the things that have happened before us. And so many of our decisions are being made by the stories, the early stories
Yeah.
that we built into our lives. And if we don't watch out, those stories can become authors.
Hmm.
And so it's so dangerous to let those stories become the author of our life. And when they were always only just stories. And we actually exist in this wonderful opportunity to be an awake author of our life. But part of that is taking the pen away from those previous stories in our past, and understanding that they were not meant to be the authoritarian holders of the pen. They were meant to inform our current lives of love, and always is that conscious opportunity to apply love to those stories, like you said, that unhealed teenager, that unhealed child. When I think of that, I have still to this day, I have those that child pops up. You
Yeah.
know, I'll be going through a thing, and for example, we live right now. I don't even need to name it in the space of like political disruption. Which, by the way, no matter when this comes out, that'll probably be true, right?
Exactly.
Like
Exactly. Whether
like
it's 20 years from now or 20 minutes from now. Yes.
Tale as old as time. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like we live in that space, and if I don't watch out, I find like my angry teenager, or specifically the angry, hurt queer person that just came out and just had his whole family leave him.
Yeah.
That teenager can be very vocal in my life. Not teenager, like 20 something when I came out. But that space and time of like feeling pain, feeling betrayal, if I don't watch out, I will speak from a voice of betrayal and pain when I'm not there anymore. And the truth is that life has given me a beautiful husband and a beautiful work with this music career, and I can speak from this place of peaceful, grounded, beautiful love. Or I can let that older story grab the pen. And so being awake for me means being like, oh yeah, I now, who I am now can be the author of this moment.
I love it. I'm giving you a standing ovation. I'm not going to actually stand up because it might be awkward on the camera. Standing ovation, Bobby. I think about being awake and exactly how you said it. When I'm not awake to the story, the collection of stories, the ideas, which really hold a frequency, because frequency is what really creates reality, right? It's not only the story that I'm telling, because it might not even have words. As a matter of fact,
Mm,
the
mm,
earliest stories in my life were when I was pre-verbal. So there aren't even
mm,
necessarily words attached to it, but there is this frequency. And when I'm asleep, or when I'm asleep within the dream, I'm in that responsiveness or reaction from those old ideas and beliefs. Now, I recently facilitated a panel called "Moving Beyond the Fight: A Deeper Healing Within LGBTQ plus," and a couple of people we did Q&A from the audience. And the reason I'm bringing this in is because as you're talking, I'm imagining someone watching or listening that might say, well, what's wrong with being the rebellious teenager? What's wrong with being angry? There's so much happening in the world that we should be angry about. And in that panel discussion, there were a few people that said, it sounds to me like you're trying to tell me I shouldn't be angry, but I'm pissed off. I'm curious if we can dive into that a little bit. I have lots I can say about that because I think in my own journey, I thought the rebellious teenager was bad or wrong and I must get rid of it. And I
mm.
don't think that's what we're saying here. So let's just take a little deeper dive and a little more nuanced conversation into it.
Yeah, when I think of someone saying wondering, does that mean does talking about these earlier selves mean that none of their feelings were valid?
Right.
Or does talking about their earlier, does bringing some of that emotion into the present state mean that some of our present anger isn't valid? And of course, I would say like, no, every emotion deserves care.
Yes.
And but there's a difference between attention and affection. Attention can be this thing where it's just like, I'm going to focus on this thing and let it take me wherever it's going to go. Attention is, you can get lost if you give something your attention. But affection is a different sort of feeling where it's like, I, the loving self, am going to give care to this emotion that makes me feel bad. And that affectionate approach for me has always been really, really helpful when it comes to anger and responsiveness. I'm in the middle right now of like some responsiveness and reactiveness to some of the political things that are going on. I feel the anger right now, even with, like you said, it took you 20 years to get over to get over some things, even with 16 years of songwriting and trying to become a better person and so much reading and so many lessons and so many introspection, I still have that anger that goes all the way. back that feels visceral. But what I have now in my toolbox is an opportunity to step back and look at the anger as if it's an emotion that is along with a sea of emotions, and look at it as an option of like, what now do I want to respond to based on this anger? It's not at the edge of my reactivity. It becomes something that I can bring into the center of myself and give it affection and care, and then decide how to respond to it. Does that make sense?
Oh, it's brilliant because when I can, and that might be even a deeper awareness. I think. I mean, you wrote the lyric, but to slow down and to feel would also be to become the observer, and then that's where we can make conscious decisions because there's nothing wrong with anger. The question is, what does it create? And traditionally, it's created some things that people could say are great, but it's also kept us stuck, right? It's always both and. It's not either or. And so the question that I'm asking myself and I'm asking the world right now in the midst of everything happening is what will be more effective, right? When I'm in my reactivity, what does that create? Not bad, not wrong, but what does it create? When I pause, feel the anger, which is really different than expressing it outward, right?
Yes.
Feel
Mm, yes.
anger and honor, because when I honor all parts of self, the anger usually, in my own experience and working with clients for over like 30 years, is the anger's masking something and it thinks it's protecting. And usually what it's protecting is a deep wound and a young self. I didn't know what to do in Indiana when, boys were calling me the F word every day. And Bobby, I remember a therapist said to me when I was in my 20s, he said, "What was it like being attracted to the same people that were calling you and the F word every single day?"
Mm,
And I just broke down. We were at a point in the therapy where he knew that I could really be with that question. And I realized there was so much unfelt emotion that I was hiding with the anger, and that protector thought it was protecting, and that rage pointed outward. And I realized that at some point, I wanted to bypass the angry teenager, if you will, and go right to the healing of like, yeah, that was really painful. And it was all mixed up with sexual attraction. And my gosh, the layers. So
yeah.
to be able to feel that and then allow myself to be more conscious about how I want to respond rather than react, to me, is how we start to actually change the world and to serve the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What a deep question your therapist asked you.
Yeah,
And to have to have the understanding be, well, one of the biggest painful parts of it is that I wanted to love the people who were hurting me.
right.
And them hurting me was keeping me from being able to love them.
Yeah. And can you imagine the relationships I chose in my early 20s?
Right.
I laugh now, but I mean, it's so obvious. And, one level is, of course, that's what was modeled to me, blah, blah, blah. But the deeper level was that's all I felt I was worthy of. Because at the same
Mm,
time, having the attraction to these boys that were basically being really brutal toward me created this confusion, but it created this sense of that's all I'm worthy of.
yeah. Yeah. When I think of that, I think of this, I think of like the often divided feeling we can get, and I think of the often the anger people can feel, especially about injustice, and especially injustice as a queer person towards LGBTQ people. Of course, you're gonna feel that. And then I also think of this concept that a spiritual teacher named Rob Bell brought up one time in a recent conversation. He said, I really like this idea of a South Star.
Mm,
And so you can have a north star which directs you by shining which is the way to go, what is good and what is truthful. But I love also the idea of having a south star, meaning having someone express shadow, express emotion, express darkness, express hatred, and having that be a navigating point towards the good. So you're not just pointing at the soft star and saying that's bad. You're using it to propel you towards where you need to go. And when I slow down, I have a much bigger chance of that metamorphosis happening, of
right.
being able to transform instead of transmute the pain and anger. But if I don't watch out, the South Star can be a black hole. And it can be a thing that draws me into places of hatred, shame, pain, anger. And what I can just say from my personal experience, having lived that for a season and time in my life, I was not able to, I was not happy, I was not fulfilled, I was not able to, and most importantly, I wasn't able to build the life I needed to build and build the community I needed to build because I was being drawn into that black hole of shame and hatred and all of these things. And it kept me from moving forward for a little while. So using it as a South Star to propel us forward feels like a great, framing for those things.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And when I think about it, I think about, in today's culture, we call it toxic positivity, right? That's only focusing on the North Star. It's like pretending like this stuff isn't here. And I think sometimes when we have these conversations about moving beyond the fight, people think that's what we're saying, and that's not at all what we're saying. And I think there's a sense sometimes, I know in my own journey, and certainly people I've worked with, we're afraid, or I was afraid if I looked or delved into the South Star that it would envelop me. But the truth is, avoiding the South Star is actually what kept it alive in my life. It was in that
Mm.
avoiding and that running from, like running toward the North, running toward the North. And then when I was able to turn in and really embrace some of the shadow, I think about Pema Chodron. She says, compassion isn't a relationship between the healer and the wounded, it's a relationship between two equals. And so, as I've embraced my own, and I love the term South Star, this is honestly the first time I'm hearing it, which I love. When I embrace that South Star, then I'm able to be more profoundly available for someone else without actually being part of helping them run away, being part of being able to turn toward it. I'm called to ask if you want to do a song,
Oh, sure.
whatever song you feel called to do.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this one might be really good. So I grew up like a lot of LGBTQ people did in a like very religious context, and so I had a lot of Bible like metaphors and verses that went through my head a lot of my life. And even today, I still find some of those metaphors uh, relevant in as the metaphors themselves and in how to move forward in my life. And this song is called "A Wilder Wind," and it just at the very last part of the chorus, it says something that I think ties into our conversation really well. It says, "I used to think that faith would move my mountains, but now I can see the one faith moves is me. I'm the one that needs the moving." And so just bringing ourselves into that world of what we're believing and doing. So here we go. This is a wilder wind, and I'm gonna click this little button so that it's a little better. Okay, here we go. A resurrection sounds good to me, but these grave clothes are comfy. I've got room in this nice quiet tomb and a good roof above me. I hear a voice speaking my name, calling me to a better way. And my doubt whispers we could stay the same for free, but that's not who I wanna be. So let me roll like a river, arms wide as the sea, willing to go where the wilder waves take me. Strong as a hurricane, but light as the breeze, willing to rise when the wilder wind wakes me. And I used to wait for faith to move my mountains, but now, oh, I can see the one faith moves is me. I'm the one that needs the moving. The moving. A new creation sounds good to me, but this old cocoon is comfy. I've got space in this familiar place, doesn't ask too much of me. But I hear a voice speaking my name, calling me to a brighter day. And my fear whispers we could stay the same for free. But that's not who I wanna be. No, I wanna roll like a river, arms wide as the sea, willing to go where the holy current takes me. And strong as a hurricane, but light as the breeze, willing to rise when the wilder wind wakes me. And I used to wait for love to move my mountains, but now I can see the one love moves is me. I'm the one that needs the moving, the moving, where the wilder wind takes me. I want to roll like a river, arms wide as the sea, willing to go where the wilder waves take me. Strong as a hurricane, but light as the breeze, willing to rise when the wilder wind wakes me. And I used to wait for faith to move my mountains, but now I can see the one faith moves is me. Oh, I'm the one that needs the moving, the moving. A resurrection sounds good to me, but these grave clothes are comfy.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm paused. I mean, I feel moved.
Oh,
I
good.
feel moved by that. Thank you. Tell us a little bit about that song and how it came to be.
Yeah, well, I feel like when I was growing up, we talked about, of course, we talked about Jesus very much because we were in that religious world, and Jesus has a particular insult that he volleys, or maybe prophecy or truth telling that he volleys at people that are using like religion as a tool for oppression and power, and specifically he calls them whitewashed tombs. And I really love that metaphor because if you have a tomb, you can clean it up all you want. It's still a tomb. Basically, no amount of cleaning of the form will change its function. And in order for us to be alive, we actually have to stop being places that are dead, or being people that allow things that have no life into our lives. Like the function of us must be living creatures. And what we talk about consciousness. It's awake, but it's also very much like capital A, alive. And when I think of my life right now versus what my life was before, I feel like I had a lot of untruth that I was trying to polish. Like I was trying to make myself feel good about a way of being that was inherently dead. And now I'm trying to live an inherently alive life. And it gives me so much more purpose. I love we've all heard of the Garden of Eden story. And I love that in the Garden of Eden story, there's these two trees. And one of them is the tree of life. And then one of them is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And I love the way the story frames that because there's definitely some wisdom in the idea that like the tree of knowledge of good and evil is not life. A lot of masquerading of life is if we can just figure out what's right and what's wrong and do the exact right thing, that'll be true life. But true life is really just the dance of present aliveness. So anyway, that's what that song means to me in
Oh
so
my
many
goodness.
philosophical terms.
So amazing. Wow. I feel like we could talk for another hour, but we're actually coming to the end of our conversation.
Oh, wow, my
I know,
goodness.
can you believe it?
This has been so rich.
It's been so rich. I just love it. And I'm a big fan of like we do 30 minutes and whatever emerges, but so much emerged that's so useful. I know in my own journey, and I'm sure anyone watching and listening. So in a moment, I'll ask you to have any closing thoughts that you might want to share with our audience. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you for who you be in the world. I know that's not grammatically correct, but it's your beingness and your brightness have always inspired me. And from the day we met. So I just want to say thank you. And thank you for being bold. And thank you for being bold in the midst of everything happening in your own life, in the world, and truly being alive with a capital A. And that to me is when I feel that my life has a deeper purpose the energy will always support that. And I see that in your life, and I see that in the trajectory of your life. So thank you for saying yes to your calling. Any closing thoughts?
Oh, well, thank you, TJ. And I gotta say that the second I met you too, I felt such a deep level of care about the truth and about what love means in the world and all of those things. And I think that the closing thought I'd like to leave people with is just at the very start is, there's always going to be things to try to speak the truth about that aren't exactly the truth. There's always going to be a feeling that we need to deconstruct, but in that is also a deep need to be growing things, to be creating things, to be bearing positive fruit, and not toxic positively, but still positivity, but still a focus on what we can build and what we can grow. And when I think of my wonderful LGBTQ siblings around the world, what I want to say is what a beautiful opportunity we have right now to practice the better. Richard Rohr, Franciscan monk, I'll just say this real quick. He has a quote I really love, and what he says is, "The best critique of the bad is the practice of the better."
Mm.
And I don't think there's a better quote that I could end with.
I love that. Well, thank you for your presence. Thank you for what you've shared today. Everyone watching or listening, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share this. I know there are people in your life who would benefit from hearing this, so please share this interview. Bobby Jo Valentine, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love you. And I'm so incredibly grateful you said yes to being on the podcast.
My deep pleasure to be here. Peace.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Element Q podcast. It's an honor to walk this path of healing and transformation with you. Remember, the courage and resilience of those who came before us live on in each of us. Let's continue to carry their legacy forward as we support one another in creating a world filled with love, gentleness, and empowerment. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone who needs to hear it. Together, we're building a brighter future, one story at a time. Until next time, I'm TJ Woodward, and this has been the Element Q podcast.